Hello guys, great to see you all. So many familiar faces. It is a pleasure to be here on behalf of Flying Wild Hog team that we are representing, and I want to tell you something about principal triangles behind Trek to Yomi. Well, the title of the presentation was great at the beginning, but the connotations that appeared in our head later on were not so great at all. So, but we keep it as it is. So hopefully we'll enjoy it. Another thing that we wanted to highlight is that we are wanting to here to just share our knowledge and our experience that we encounter with Tractation, which is a very uncommon project. But more about that later on. So I want to start with presenting a bit ourselves. So I would like to tell you a few things about Kasia Szymczak-Skalska. She started, yeah, please, sorry, my bad. So Kasia started her career in 2008 in gaming. She was working back then in City Interactive, later on called CI Games, and she created such titles like Art of Murder, Chronicles of Mystery, Enemy Front, Sniper Ghost Warrior series. Later on, she also did some PR marketing, and in 2019, she joined our Flying Wild Hog Rzeszów team and co-produced with me a few games like Space Punks, like Devolver Expo, and Trek to Yomi. So just to summarize her career, she went from a role like tester, doing some gigs like narrative design, game design, and finally reached the position of producers with me in our studio. So good to have you, Kasia. One more time, please, applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mirek. It's a pleasure to be here. And let me introduce Mirek Baran, my co-producer of Trek to Yomi. So Mirek started, yeah, please, guys. Mirek started his career in 2010, and he was connected with Gameforge, as I remember correctly. I'm not going to tell you about CI Games and Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 and 3, Enemy Front, and Lords of the Fallen, both I think premium and mobile. And I'm not going to repeat what are we doing in Flying Wild Hog, but when I joined in 2019, he already was there. But what I want to mention, I think it's even more important, is his engagement in the community. He was an esport commentator and coordinator of gaming community. So please again welcome Mirek Baran. And yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Sorry. My mic is not working.
Yeah, Kasia's mic is.
Hello.
Let better fix it right now.
Right now it's working?
Yeah.
Working?
So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
First feedback.
Yeah. For you. So let's go to the principal triangles behind Trek to Yomi, and we are not going to tell about triangles that you are thinking right now about. We are going to tell you about gaming producing Trek to Yomi. But at the beginning, let me introduce the game itself. It is cinematic style, side-scroller adventure game which tells story about a young samurai who needs to choose his path. He chooses between love, fury, and duty, and you will choose this path by yourself when you play the game. Trek to Yomi was launched on May 5th, and this is the very first speech that we are giving after the big day. So if you want to know something about triangles, about the pillar triangle, about the Japanese triangle, and about the production triangle behind Trek to Yomi, you are in the right place. But why triangles? As you already see on the slide, triangle is very important in Japanese culture and religion, and together with the square and circle, it means harmony. And triangle itself means mission. And we thought that our mission was to create the game that will be more like cinematic, more like movie. And we took this mission and delivered it. So maybe we've got something from Japanese people. I don't know. You will see. But let's go to the first triangle. Oh, no, sorry.
Yes. So yeah, the most important triangle that we always have as a producer is the scope between, is the proportion between scope, time, and cost. But don't worry, we don't want to tell you something about one-on-one product management. It's so basic that probably everyone knows on this place what it's about. So let's jump to something related to track to Yomi, and please, Kasia, follow.
Yeah, this is the first triangle I wanted to talk about, Pillars triangle. So at the very beginning, our production of Track to Yomi, we knew that we will create the black and white project with the cinematic vibe. And we were discussing what will be the points that, that are very important for us. And we decided to pick two. One of them is authenticity. We decided that to create game which will be historical accurate. And second one is the dynamic combat, which is our DNA, to be honest. We are doing this kind of games in Flying Wild Hog. But let's go further. Because we wanted to keep this prepare the cinematic feel in our game, we decided to put more effort to the cinematic feeling when it comes to environment, camera shot, visual effects. And to do that, we put a lot of attention to the style and composition of directors of old samurai movies. And how did we work with shots preparing this game? So, as you can see here, the biggest challenge was to create each shot in the way that will be clear for all players. And the biggest challenge was to show the path, show clear path for player to go. So we had to not only focus on artistic preparation of shots, but also to have clear vision, clear shot for gameplay. And as you can see on the first picture on the left side of the screen, at the beginning we've got too much detail on the textures. The path was not so visible. It was very difficult to achieve readable path with only black and white. And on the graphic inside, in the center, you can see how our concept artists tried to help our level designers to show the path. And the third one on the right side is the final shot. We also were working on plan separation, light and shadow, and of course at the end movie post processes. Yeah, very important were visual effects in our game. We've got a lot of them. The storm, rain, wind, some leaves going down from the trees, and this gives our game very cinematic and moody style. But also we've got some places where we've got almost no visual effects, where we want to give some breadth for player to not see the chaos everywhere. But yeah, how the shots were done from technical point of view, and it's Mirek.
Thank you very much, Kasia. So yeah, as you already know, we have really skillful art team that did really amazing job in terms of preparing environment and how to put some life into the game. So we had to learn all those movie techniques that are used right now in films. So it was like this camera movement guide, like what kind of techniques we have, like dolly, track, pan, tilt, and roll, and all of those things. We had to go in the iteration process from one step to another to learn all of this, and then combine them into sequence, put them into movement, use all the things in the game to emphasize specific emotions and effects that we wanted to achieve. So technically, at the beginning with Leonard Menchiari, who had like enormous knowledge about movies. He tell us a lot of things how to make it happen, and also that's a really great experience for the future that we are for sure will be using that in next projects. So technically we can say that as a game developers, we started on the beginning of our production how to make movies. And technically also this is very important that it was probably camera system. It was probably the longest developed feature in our game. It started almost from the day one, and it was finished like very early, very late, and like after beta, we did some latest tweaks and did some improvements here. So that was a long journey, but it was a very fun ride to go. And what was one of the biggest challenges for us? It was keeping consistency and integrity in the game, using those techniques and all the elements that we have. So here you can see example from chapter 1. We have this beautiful vista that was supposed to give player a bit breath between combats to enjoy the visual elements in the game and have some calm moment. And now we are going forward and there is already an encounter. So the same place had to be readable and easy to understand what is going on if you have some enemies. Now we have once again some guidelines that there will be something happening in those huts, that there is a fire, there is this those two riders going there. So you already probably understand that there are some things happening. And also, as you can see already here, the same thing is already in cinematic. So that was like making sure that the same visual effect will be achieved on every single spot, that you will enjoy the general feeling of the game on chapter 1 and also on other chapters as well. So yeah, moving forward, what kind of things we had in our game? Authenticity. So Kasia, please.
Authenticity is the second vertex of our pillars triangle, but inside this authenticity vertex, we've hide second triangle. And this is Japanese triangle. I wanted to say about our friends who helped us to make our game historical accurate, and without them we couldn't we wouldn't be able to do that. And it's Aki Taibei, a historian who was met by Leonard in Tokyo Museum, Shigeki Saito, our friend from Flying Wild Hog Warsaw studio. They were kind of responsible for culture and history. Also, Yoko Honda and Cody Johnson, who prepared for us, composed and produced the music. And also Zach Huntley, Yorika Kuwahara, with their team from Kakeshi Games, who was responsible for voiceovers and translation all text on Asian languages. So let's go to culture and history. As I said before, the main person here are Aki Taibei Matsunaga and Shigeki Saito. But firstly, we based in creating our lore to the game, we based on one of the oldest Japanese books called Kojiki. And we've got a ton. We did ton of research, but it wasn't enough. We had to have someone who will guide us. And Aki Taibei Matsunaga was a guardian who you will see later, who pointed us such details that we could never know these things, and we could never know that we are doing something not correctly. Not yet.
Close.
Not yet.
Okay. So for the culture.
Yeah, I wanted to also add that Aki translated all our text to Japanese also. We didn't have, we had localization companies, but she translated it into Japanese from Edo period. So it is also very important for us. And Shigeki, who maybe doesn't have the knowledge from Japan from Edo period, but he was pointing us some things and telling guys, maybe you should discuss it or ask Aki about something. I'm not sure, but maybe you should try and ask her about something, yeah? And I will show you some mistakes we did before Aki pointed it out. But firstly, I want to tell you about one place, one environment in Trek to Yomi where we didn't have to be historical accurate. It's Yomi. Yomi is underworld, and this environment was we based creating it on Japanese mythology. Sorry. And of course, we established it in Japanese culture and religion, but that was it. There was no, there was no limitation. The limitation was only our imagination and good taste to not, make Japanese people feel bad about it. Because I don't know anyone who went to Yomi and go back to tell us how does it look like. So that's our imagination. So, yeah, mistakes. I need to tell this, that those mistakes were made at the very early stage of our game when we were still researching some things. But yeah, we gave Hiroki normal European shorts instead of traditional underwear from Japan. But we didn't know that they should have this kind of, special strings instead of shorts. Sorry. But in the final version of the game, we fixed it, so you can check. And second mistake that we did, it was Bell and Bell Tower. If you played Trek to Yomi, you know that at the very beginning of chapter 1, bandits are coming to Hiroki's city, and Bell is warning citizens about danger. And we've prepared very nice bell tower and bell, but we didn't know that in Japanese bell there is no bell clapper, and there needs to be someone who is hitting the bell with a piece of wood. So we did European bell, but of course in the game now it's changed. I want to mention one more thing. It's maybe funny, but here you can see on such details Aki was taking care of. She was a very detailed person, and she was telling us that the smallest things need to be correct. But we've got more of that, and some of them will present you, Mirek.
Yeah, so I want to show you some examples from weapon side. So we have technically 4 weapons in Trek to Yomi. Katana are the only one melee weapon, and 3 utilities that we use to interrupt enemies. So with Katana, it was a very simple task. It was more about what kind of inscriptions and decorations you want to have on it to make it accurate, because there are, for example, cinematics showing you this in very high quality detail. So we want to be sure that everyone who will be watching this will be feeling that, okay, this is really great katana. And another thing is shurikens. Of course, we had those really nice, tiny snowflake stars on the beginning because we really wanted to have something to interrupt the movement of the enemy. And apparently it was just used by ninjas. And of course, our fantasy is about the samurai, the people of honor and so on. So they couldn't use that. So we needed to find out something that will be accurate. And we found out that it just needs to be added bow shuriken. And those are the things on the right side where you can see those metal rods. So those were used by the soldiers in combat, and everything is fine, so we couldn't have it in the game. Third one is about bow. So with this one is also pretty easy in terms of the model itself. The one problematic thing was about animations. So just to speed up the process of production, we had a lot of assets from asset source. Sorry, just it is how it is. And apparently the way how it was drawn, the string was drawn, it wasn't correct. So we had to use the technique that was used by Japanese soldiers at that time. So we took like probably a few weeks to manage that and to correctly show you how it was used and to make it as accurate as possible. And the first one is Ozutsu. That's a hand cannon. That's a powder weapon that was also used by soldiers, and that allowed us to give this fantasy of the weapon that can pierce multiple enemies in front of our path. So it was, from one side, very fun to use it and play with that, but also it was also going correctly with in terms of the historical elements in Trek to Yomi. So now I would like to mention you a few things that Kasia already started about the language and voiceovers. So we had script in English.
Wait, Mirek, I'm sorry. I have to say that this second vertex of our Japanese triangle.
Okay, we are going to another vertex of our triangles. Thank you very much. So, language and voiceover. A script was written in English and it was transcribed by Aki Taibei Matsunaga on Japanese. Transcribed, which means like the fully localized, not translated, which is very commonly misunderstood. So with that process help us Aki and as well Kakehashi Games, who are very literally long-lasting partner with Devolver Digital. They did a lot of projects with them, and they have really quality guys on the back end that support this process and did this in many iterations. So I think that the final results are almost bulletproof. And also Kakehashi Games allowed us to reach out very high-profile actors. And for example, maybe you recognize this person, Aki Osuka. That's Lord Shimura from Ghost of Tsushima. So yes, there are a few things that connect our games, but not so many. And the final result that the guys achieved in our game is amazing. When we finally put those voiceovers from the final recordings to the game, it was like at least 20% better quality than it was before on some kind of placeholders. So that was a great cooperation, and we are also very proud of that. And the last one is about mitigating the risk in this very crucial process. So we put a lot of effort to polish our lock kit. So one of the tips that we can, for example, give you about that, it was not only putting comment and some additional information for the actors, like what kind of, for example, speed of the speech should be, or what kind of tone and so on, but also we recorded entire playthrough of the game. And we put in Lockkit timestamps for exactly precisely the moment. So that allowed not only the translators, but also actors to understand what is exactly going on, what kind of emotions are driven there, like what kind of environment inside this process. And then make sure that their tone and their acting would be as best as possible. And they did it. And also we get a lot of positive feedback from Devolver. That was the best Lockkit that I ever saw. So I'm also really proud from that. And let's jump to music with Kasia.
Yeah, music is the third vertex of our Japanese triangle, height in authenticity, the pillars triangle, just for you to remember. And as I said before, Empiria Sound and Music were responsible for not only compose, but also produce the music. And here, very important person from our perspective, Yoko Honda, also already mentioned before. She is a composer, and she, together with Cody Johnson, create for us very moody Japanese music. But I am mentioning her also because she's got not only Japanese heritage, but also samurai heritage, and she was also pointing us some things, telling us that, guys, you did great job, or think about it, maybe you should change something here. And I'm very, very grateful for that, because she did great job with Cody about music, but she was not only focusing about music, she wanted to make our game better. And what more about music? The recordings made by Gagaku Orchestra were based on a rich set of traditional Japanese instruments, and now I have to read it to you because I don't want to misspell them. Koto, shamisen, biwa, kokyu, and shell horn that you can see on the slide. And if you will have a chance to listen to this music, you should. I highly recommend it, and it will be even better with playing the game, because it makes a difference. And I will put a dot here. But it's time to go to the first point of our pillar triangle: dynamic combat. And Mirek.
Thank you very much, Kasia, our guardian of triangles. So let's start with dynamic combat. This is the third vertex, and we wanted to achieve this mastery of blade with our Hiroki. So as you can see, this is our main hero with few important elements. So we wanted to acknowledge what kind of fantasy we are selling, right? So this is like a samurai movie with a person who is following the some kind of paths that we are picking during the gameplay. And one of the first things that appeared in our mind, it was like some form of code of Bushido. So we wanted to ensure that the people who will be playing the game will not treat it as some kind of button masher. It will be about being precise, doing things calm and with the cold blood. So whatever you're performing an action, you need to be sure that you're doing the right thing. So if you, of course, precisely do right stuff, then you will be killing enemy. If not, there will be a punishment, of course. So that was the one thing. So no button smasher. Another thing is katana, our tool of ultimate extermination. So with this one, we had in mind to make sure that the game will be more skill-based, not gear-based. So the katana from the chapter 1 is exactly the same katana that you have on the chapter 7. So everything is based on your experience, on your knowledge, on your using player's progression across the game. So it's like in Dark Souls. Maybe you have, of course, some progression with the gear, but it's more about like how did you learn a lot of things and how you're using those techniques against your enemies. So learn the game, master it, and enjoy it. So the third thing that we wanted to mention here is the style. It is about how you are mastering all those elements together and how you are achieving this form of dance on the battle. Like you are going from the left to the right, you are performing some combos, you are doing finishers, everything is in sequence. And with some additional techniques that we use in the game, you can like do it every single time, like without even losing stamina and health even, if you know what you are doing. And I will mention a few things about this later on. So let's jump like what kind of player skills we set in his belt. So the first tier is technically like when you took a gamepad of the in front of your eyes and you will see any kind of button, you will see exactly the actions that are on the first tier, like pressing X or Y, it is light or heavy attack, there is a block, there is run, there's option to position yourself, left to the right, and rotation. So this is the most basic skills that you are getting on the tutorial on the chapter 1. On the second tier, you're getting those actions into move when you're also analyzing what is going on in front of you, like on this direct shot. So when you're, for example, pressing block on the right moment, you're doing parry. If you're pressing block and also attack, you can perform counter-attack if you time everything correctly. There are also stun and staggers that can lead the players to the state that will allow us to perform finishers. And the finishers, we encourage people to play more aggressive. So you are not only after finisher replenish your stamina, but also regain a bit your health. So it's like promoting this aggressive movements, just like, for example, in Bloodborne, that if you are going forward, you're making sometimes mistakes, but you can regain your initiative in the combat. And the third tier is using all of those things in the more bigger picture. So there are environmental hazards that you can use against your enemies. There is mechanic to swap places with your enemies. So not only you're analyzing and position yourself left to the right, but also you can queue your enemies that you are, for example, killing firstly the most easiest one, and then you are preparing yourself for the most difficult enemy on the spline. And also, on top of that, we added overall 35 skills that are divided into 3 branches: offensive, defensive, and utilities. So with all of that, if you are truly reach the mastery, you can go through hard mode. Trust me, some game designers did that. And you can like do it without like repeating the game on that shot, because if you are chaining exactly correct actions, you will be able to really feel a lot of satisfaction from achieving this mastery of the blade. And here is, for example, one of the example of the things that were thrown off the game. This is mechanic called throwing enemy. It was feeling this fantasy of, it was feeling the design point of view to have this option to position our player on the spline. So we wanted to manage right, left to the right, cue the enemies, and then perform correct actions. But we felt that it was counterproductive against the first pillar, which is the cinematic move. It's like more jujitsu combat, not like kenjutsu that was our goal. So we decided to remove that mechanic of drawing enemy and replacing with the swapping places by using the katana swing, which is implemented in the game. And moving forward, what kind of what the hell is that?
She wants to know something more about Trek to Yomi.
All right, awesome. So 2 most important fantasies that you can see in samurai movies. One is, of course, duel, and the second one is fighting against a lot of enemies. So we did a lot of research. I personally prefer Harakiri. I do encourage you to watch this movie. For me, it's great, from Kobayashi. And I think that with those references, we were able to really achieve something special in the game. And I want to show you in a few steps how we did that. So this is the example from the first chapter when we have just a simple duel. There's a bandit, there is a Hiroki. Camera is fixed. There is practically no movement. You can see this small glitch on the right. This is not an error in the game. This is like a communication with the player that the shot is locked. So you need to deal with the enemy in this combat environment. You cannot go out. So that was the first step that we did. And next, we wanted to add more. So of course here we have some enemies that are, for example, going to us from the background or from the roofs that are on the first plane. And also, as you can see, there is like more dynamic encounters with enemies. They are not coming from the left or the right, but using all the environment. Another thing, the camera is moving. So we have this more dynamic gameplay. But it was still not enough. So let's go to the third point. And after many, many iterations, we finally reached the system that was called group behaviors. So you can see we have few circles around the player. And enemies are walking around and waiting for the ticket that can join on the spline and fight with our player. If there will be no space, they will be just levitating around and waiting for the right moment. And with this, we finally achieved what we wanted to have in the game, and then we started to polish more of the gameplay. And those are like very close, short explanations, what kind of things we encounter. There's much more that we did in Trek to Yomi. For example, one of the biggest production challenges that we had from the day one was the thing that we wanted to have the game almost on every platform. So Gen 9, Gen 8, 4 PC platforms. Of course, PlayStation has released on the Europe and America. So those was like 10 overall builds for the Gold Masters. So trust me, that was a lot of effort for the QA, for the programmers to make everything happen. Another thing was to achieve really high quality level of cinematics because, well, this entire game is driven by this filmatic experience, right? And I will tell you some things about this later. And one of the, for example, another big challenges was UI because, well, the game is black and white. There is no color, so you need to deal with that by using different mechanics. Like you can see already in the game, we used some animations. We used a lot of VFX. We used some mechanics to just interrupt a bit the player to create this distraction by putting small dots. So they were looking more like a film effect post-process than was just some kind of glitch. And we were trying to find some kind of middle spot that will be communicating with the player, what kind of gameplay mechanic we have, but also it will be clear and consistent with the vision that was in Trek to Yomi, highlighted by this cinematic vibe. But now let's jump to the most important triangle in this speech. Let's go to the production.
At least from our point of view, Mirek, because we are producers both, but maybe you are more interested in previous ones. I need to tell that that was very first time when we worked with the vision holder and publisher at the same time. And here I want to introduce those three vertex of our production triangle. So our vision holder still is. Vision holder of Trek to Yomi is Leonard Menchiari. Very creative person, with very good ideas and the vision, but I regret that we didn't meet offline, never meet offline, and this was also one of the challenges of our production. Second vertex is Devolver Digital, publisher, but probably you know that they are not just publisher, they are a special publisher, how to say. And us, Flying Wild Hog, you guys, us, we are not just developer. We also got our own hog sauce, so you will see later. So let's go to Leonard. Everything started with Leonard Menchiari, who came to Devolver with the vision of black and white game about samurai. And Leonard is known more about movies, but also he created 2 games. It was it was Eternal Castle Remastered, and I wanted to mix these both games and didn't know with which should I start. So the Eternal Castle Remastered and Riot Civil Unrest. He got used to working before with, for example, these 2 games with small teams, only few people there. So at the beginning, we've got a big challenge to get to know our roles, to learn what we should do or we shouldn't do, and allocate the responsibilities. I need to say that Leonard is very, as I said before, a very creative person, and also because he got an idea about the game. So guys, most of you are developers, so if you got an idea, it's more like your baby, so you don't want to someone else to, change anything with you inside your baby, because it's your baby, Oh, come on, Mirek, you know what I mean.
Yeah, those triangles.
Yeah. So we had to get to know, and it was difficult because as I said before, we didn't met personally, only online meetings. But we got a lot of talks. We had meetings every week with almost each team, I think. We were meeting all the time. We were trying to understand his vision and make sure that he trusts us. Simple as it is. And the second challenge, one of the biggest challenge, was that the time zones. We are from Poland, and Leonard, at the beginning of our journey with Trek to Yomi, was in Los Angeles. So when we were finishing our daily work, he was getting up. And as I said before, he got used to working on each element of the game before, because he was working with very small teams. So in previous productions, he was responsible, for example, for animations. He did some animations, some gameplay, some design, and it was situations that when some people from our team did some job, they went home, go to sleep, and then next day they came and something was wrong. Because Leonard during the night changed something in the engine, and it was okay because we are experimenting all the time, but we didn't know about it. He didn't want to wake us up because it was at night in Poland. But as I said, very quickly we allocate responsibilities. We also learned him about our pipeline, that we've got the teams that are responsible for some task, and he just can go to the engine and change something without even discussing with them. And we agreed what we can help us with his knowledge and his vision, and what we should do on our side. And the things that he based much on his knowledge and vision was, for example, concept art of characters. It was also animations, huge part of cinematics. What more? Characters. He was giving us feedback about characters models. And I think it was very fair to, say what he should do or not, what he should discuss with us, just to allocate the responsibilities. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kasia. So I want to jump right now into second vertex of our production triangle, and it's about Devolver Digital. So I want to share you some things about our publisher and coordinator in the project. With this production, we had this very unique chance to like work in this different environment than usual. That Devolver had like very important role of being an arbitrator between us and Leonard. So of course, whenever we went forward, there were some kind of creative like ideas that
experiments, I would say, even.
Very good. I like that. And sometimes they were not aligned to each other. So we had to decide what kind of direction we are following, right? So with that, Devolver was always very open to us, was always giving some snippets, but usually tried to make sure that we will be deciding that after all, it will be decision of Flying Wild Hog and Leonard. But if there was some rare cases that we couldn't find out like what is the right thing, he was jumping on and helping us to solve that. Another very important thing with the Devolver was very open and honest communication. So just to give you some bigger picture here, we worked with Devolver all the time for over a decade. And that's another fun fact is that both our companies, Flying Wild Hog and Devolver Digital, was founded in 2009. So that's exactly the same year. So we have the same DNA in our veins. Like we have like really crazy approach and we are doing things that are, well, uncommon, let's just say. So whoever saw some Devolver Digital or Flying Wild Hog games, you probably understand what I'm trying to say. So with them, we really had a really great relationship already. So it was always helping us to enforce the vision and make sure that the final results will be great and better. And that paid off a lot because, for example, when we had a decision at the middle of the production that there is an opportunity to make the game even better by adding a bit more time for the production crew, by like cranking up a few things, adding around 3 months to the scope. For us, it was a very easy idea technically, because we just shared this idea with Mark, explained him what kind of things we can achieve. Like we, for example, tripled the amount of the cutscene from 15 minutes that was expected at the beginning to 45 at the end. And Mark took it like instantly, and he was like our guy inside Devolver Digital. So being honest, being trustworthy, being communicative, it allowed us to achieve really great results. Yes, Kasia?
Yeah, I would like to add here, it's not only because we wanted to have more cutscenes, but we got really good reason to do that.
Of course, of course. So it was a chance, and what is the most important thing is the fact that usually this kind of discussions aren't easy. It was like presenting, you know, updated roadmap, new resource plan, and so on. But with Mark, it was like very easy task. We just shared with him like what is the general vision, and you know, he just dealt with his board, everything, and we just got information like after a few weeks, like okay, you can do it. So it was fun to do like that. And also, what is very important for us that we have really great guy on the other hand, on the other side. So we work with Mark Lloyd, aka Punisher, as you can see on this video, on this slide. He is a very experienced person. He worked over 12 years in the Royal Air Force in United Kingdom. So he went through military. So he has some already, because of that, cool insights how to manage people. But later on, he joined gaming. And for example, he worked, I think, also like a few decades in a lot of studios. For example, in Rockstar Lincoln, he achieved the position of head of the studio, and he worked on franchises like Grand Theft Auto, like Red Dead Redemption, like Max Payne, Midnight Club, and many, many more. So his CV is very rich. And what is very important for us, he was like some form of coaching and mentor for us. So he always gave us insights how to deal with the people, what kind of things we can tackle, what kind of approach we should manage, especially with having this special triangle between vision holder, developer, and publisher. So he was always like some kind of like a good grandpa that was, you know, telling us like how to get out of this situation and how to get the best outcome that is possible. And as I said, I can fully assure you that working with Devolver was a great pleasure, and Mark Lloyd was a really nice person, and I really hope that we'll be working together in the future.
Leonard, was also a very nice person. Come on, Mirek.
Yeah, we're still waiting for him in Rzeszów. He
Yeah.
promised us that he will visit us one day.
And drink some beer. Yeah, but we should go to the development team, so Flying Wild Hog, Studio Rzeszów, and because I know that we don't have much time, so I will try to speed up. Sorry, guys, but I know that we all are here, so we can, catch somewhere here and talk, not only with us, but also with our team members. So yeah, we started Trek to Yomi with only around 25 people on board, and we growth very high during the production. Not only because we needed more people, but also we found a lot of talented people who could help us to finish the game. And I want to highlight that after the pre-production phase, we got total responsibility for the production. So we were responsible for delivering all content and quality for each milestone. What we can say, we didn't fail any milestone in this production, so everything was delivered on time and in a good quality. And here I want to thank you guys for your hard work that you did with Trek to Yomi, and I really love to work with you and love you guys. Yeah.
Coming
and,
out.
Yeah, that's
I think that there is like one more thing that I would like to shortly just mention. If there is something that I would like to just that will be kept in your mind, is the sentence that is in the London's metro: "See it, say it, sort it." This is the lesson that we took during this process. A lot of people see the problem. A lot of people, and even more, talk about the problem. But the third stage is the most difficult one. And really, guys, try to invest your time. Take your team. Really try to build the trust inside the group. Make sure that everything is transparent. You are keeping the open communication. If there is like something spotted, just solve it. Not just try to hide it on some kind of carpet. And one of the things that we really also want to highlight is the fact that, for example, try to really invest a bit more of your time to find the right people for the right task. Don't try to tackle everything by yourself. Learn to delegate. Go to the guys who are experts in the field, like we have this Akitaibe Matsunaga case, like we work with Imperial Sounds, like we also even a company, Shigeki Saito, supported us a lot. So it speeded up the process, just finding the person. It like take days or week, for example, but that was giving us a lot of time as a saved resource in the future.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know, so it's hard to get to know what you don't know.
Yeah, and the last thing from my side, I think, are the workshops. So this is like a few good words about Flying Wild Hog. During this crazy time of pandemic, of being, in those difficult situations, we had a chance to work with, for example, some trainers, and that people help us how to lead the team during remote work. That was completely different for us. As a Flying Wild Hog Rzeszów, we were very, team-based studio that was always cooperating and working this environment inside the office, and that was something completely different that we need to somehow adjust. Another thing was, for example, working with the psychologist. A lot of people, had this time of working from home as a very difficult experience, and even some of people that thought that they are going okay through that, apparently they didn't, and it was always worth it to ask those people, really try to investigate how they are feeling, like not what kind of things they are saying, how they are behaving, because this is more important after all. So with that support, we had a lot of that kind of activities with Flying Wild Hog, and we are very grateful that we were able to really go through this pretty much intact. And I think that's all, Kasia. Thank you very much for your time.
No, Mirek, I didn't tell you, but we've got one more slide. Can you just show it, please?
There is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something funny for you guys, I hope.
Oh, there's no audio here. Yeah, so but the bloopers are always the most interesting things after the presentation. So here you can see a lot of things that we encountered during delivering of the milestones, horse riders escaping from our player. Hiroki said that he doesn't want to fight anymore. And yeah, there was like, I will not call it. And of course, pig. We had pig.
We had, I don't know if we have it still, because Aki told us that there was no pigs. Yeah? It is? So, yeah, it is.
Została, dziękuję.
We've got a mistake still in the final version, because there was no pigs in Edo period Japan. It's like, you know.
Okay, so thank you very much for your time, guys. It was a pleasure.